Hello, I'm Ruba and I'm from Sri Lanka, the north of Sri Lanka. And thank you to WinCam. I'm here today to introduce the spices. They're all out here, spices that I use every day for our kind of cooking. They're Asian spices and some are Middle Eastern because we all seem to use almost the same kind of spices. So, the methodology in the use of spices varies from country to country depending on what we are cooking, and some of these are used here too. And as we learned back at home, some are for curries and some are called for baking goods. So, here are my bottles that I have them here for my cooking, and I'd better show this one. This is the cumin, and these are my stock, and I have them in the smaller bottles. And here is cinnamon. So, usually what we were taught back at home is that we had to buy cinnamon that is pencil thickness, because when the cinnamon tree grows like a bush, the older they get, the spice leaves the stems. So, the younger they are, they have the spice. Then this is maize. Maize is the outer covering of a nutmeg. So, many of you, I think some of you have seen the nutmeg. So, this grows round the nutmeg. It's the flour that dries up, and you can crush it and you can use it for cakes and so on. So, those are for bakery goods. Now, you can see the crushed red pepper here, and we sprinkle that if we want a little more spice on our curries. And we do not use all the spices in every curry. Each curry has its own special flavor. So, back at home, we do not use cinnamon, cloves or cardamom for our fish curries. There is more coriander and a little black pepper, cumin, and it's all ground into one paste for that curry. And the spices are grown in several countries, as you all are aware, like Sri Lanka, India, Indonesia, Bangkok, Singapore, all those areas. When I say Singapore, it's very much a great city. So, it's way out of that in the villages. And back at home in Sri Lanka, they encourage the people who had big gardens to have at least a plant or two of these. So, black pepper is a vine, it grows on the tree. It grows around the tree and goes up. So, we have spices that we can harvest from trees and spices from vines. And it so happens that we need all our spices. So, most of our countries, most of our people in different countries that use spices, they would have almost all these spices. Now, this curry mix or curry powder as we call it, here we do not have the grinding stone. In the old days, we had a big stone with another small stone, and they will grind everything into a paste. Now, of course, we have the Cuisinart grinder, we have so many different So we add everything into that and crush it, and then it's ready. But we love our coconut milk. We cannot cook curries without coconut. We call it milk. It's the cream that we get out of the coconut. So in my growing up years, I think for a day, they would be grating on a coconut scraper, as we called it, at least 5 coconuts a day for 4 people in the house. Because morning they'll cook breakfast, you need coconut milk, then again lunch, something else for tea maybe, and then again for dinner. So when I grew up as a small, little girl, there was no refrigerator. So they cook and they finish by evening. Whatever is left, the rice, they'll put some water and let it ferment a little, and the curries are all kept in earthenware pots. So it breathes and it's good to go. So next day morning, they mix up the whole thing, everything together, and everybody eats rice and curry in the morning. So this is the turmeric. It's crushed and in powder form. So we have to use a little bit of this in all our curries. Now, the tea, we have different, I am not sure whether you all want to call tea a spice, but we have tea gardens, thousands and thousands of acres. So we have green tea, and we have the spice tea, because now it's very, very modern. In the old days, we didn't have that. But it's also used for medicinal purposes, like you put tea leaves in boiling water and you breathe it. So if you have a cold, a chest cold, they say it helps you. It really helps. And then we come to ginger. Ginger is a great spice, and you can easily grow it in a pot. And it's a runner. So we call them fingers. So inside it'll grow and send out fingers. So all that you do is we run out to the garden and put our knife through and cut it, and then pull out a little piece and put the dirt over it, and it'll still grow. So we are very careful of using fertilizers, because they are fresh and we are eating them. So we don't use like any fertilizer that could spoil the, and also we don't even spray anything on our vegetables. So the onions, we have fields and fields of onions. And I remember going past the onion fields, and far away it was all white. I didn't realize, I was very small, and the onions had white flowers, and they had flowered and they were waving in the wind. It was so pretty to see the onions. So the shallots, if they want to sell the shallots, the farmer will cut the shallots down and take them, bundle them in groups like this and sell them in the market, and then he'll harvest the onions and dry them. So when I was growing up, we never had big, large onions. It later was grown in Sri Lanka. We only used the small, red, pungent onions in all our curries. Everything we use the small, red onions. And they are very pretty too when they flower. And so here are the mustard seeds. The mustard grows, it comes out in little pods, tiny pods, and they have to dry on the tree, and they are harvested and put out on mats, and then they open up and shed their little mustard seeds. And I met some friends from Nepal. We lived in Micronesia close to the Pacific. It's one of the Pacific islands, close to Hawaii. And the islands had 200 inches of rainfall. Anything you stick in grows. My husband was a specialist on tea, coffee, rubber, as well as all the spices. So the government in Micronesia hired him, and we lived for 10 years over there. Anything you plant will grow. You have 200 inches of rainfall. And but the people in Micronesia didn't know how to use these spices up until we moved there. And we took the seeds from Sri Lanka, and I started my own garden and started using this in the fish, because the boats come in and I go early morning waiting for the catch. So you go in the morning, go again in the afternoon, so the fish is fresh. Unfortunately, no crabs other than mangrove crabs. Each one is about 7 pounds, and I told my husband, don't bring those here because they were too big for me to even see them. They were mangrove. So the fish is wonderful. They are all the fish that they get around in close to Hawaii, and mahi-mahi and trevallis and all the different kinds. So we enjoyed, and I would, with permits, we had to bring our spices out of Sri Lanka into that country. We are not allowed to carry fresh spices unless we get a permit to come through. So that was a good thing. It was great. And the bakery goods, the cinnamon, we know we all use cinnamon if we do a sponge cake or some cake or something. And we also have desserts, and we can use crushed cardamom if we want. And so some of the spices are used for bakery goods as well. And I would like to also show you this. These are curry leaves. I bought them in the Indian store to show you all. In our homes, in my daughter's home, we have a curry leaf plant that is this big. So in the spring we cut it down and then it just flourishes. So we have to use curry leaf for our curries. That's why it's called. But back at home, if we have a maid to help us, she'll be running in and out of the kitchen, out to the garden, back again, because she's just plucking curry leaves. And here we pay like, so much is like what, $2? And we need this, I can finish this in maybe 3 days, because we have to have curry leaves. This one is called the lemongrass. And it's also, I think, called pandana, and we use this in our rice. Some of you may have already tasted going into the restaurants, like a biryani rice with all the vegetables, and these are the spices they use. So this is another way of, easy way of having our spices. So we can take this whole thing up to the stove and start. If we start off 4 pans with the curries, then it's easy to throw them in. And these are only whole spices, not crushed and powdered. So the powdered ones are all, some of them are here. So I have this in my kitchen. These are inside my closet because I have no space. I have sort of a galley kitchen, and now I think I am lucky. I tell my daughter I don't have a big kitchen, because then I have to walk to that place and bring this. Now I stand here and I reach out. All these bottles are on the door, so I just open and leave it, and I take one by one and I start cooking. I think I have covered most of it. um, the Asian communities have their own distinct flavors, and the Middle Eastern countries, they have their own distinct, way of cooking, and all the flavors are different. I think each country has its own way of cooking, the cooking skills, and the use of spices. That's what makes it so interesting when we travel from country to country. Sometimes the spices may be the same, but they are not used in particular. Now, we won't use cardamom in fish or cinnamon, but maybe, yes, in Thailand, I think, and Bangkok, they do use some of these cinnamon and cardamom and cloves. And in my home, we had like an acre of land, and I started planting. There were cinnamon just for the kick of it, and there were 3 coffee trees, and the scent of the flower is like jasmine for the coffee plant, and they are so pretty. Right along the stem, they have tufts of white flowers, and then the berries come out. And the coffee tree is cut at this height. They don't allow it to grow any further. So the women who go to pluck the coffee, it's easy for them to stand and harvest the coffee, only the red berries. And when they flower, they are so pretty. So rubber we don't use anyway, but we have rubber back at home, rubber trees. And this one, I grow this. I have a bigger plant, and this is medicinal. You want me to? Okay. This is also medicinal. We don't put it into curries, but when little kids have a very bad cold and cough, they'll take a pinch of this, crush it, and give the juice, and that clears their throat and their chest. That's what they do back at home. The first thing is this, but if it continues, then they'll know that they have to go and take a blood test and so on. But usually it's all cured very well. So I grow this. I have a very big plant that grows. I have a little cupboard in my toilet in the corner, and I put one of these, and it's like flourishing all over like this. So this is good to eat. Sometimes I eat this like once or twice a week, just a little bit. And this one is called a pia plant. That's a plant usually they have in Bangkok and other places, and it's called a peace plant. So my daughter gifted that to me like 6 months ago. So I like to see that. I have it in the living room when I get up and come out to read and have my coffee. I look at the peace plant, I say my prayers and read my Bible and do all that. And I think I have covered almost everything. I'm looking forward to do some cooking here, and invite, maybe when things are better, I would like to invite some friends from Winchester. We can use a large room, and while they are there, I can cook and they can taste, and I think I feel good standing here today and using the kitchen, WinCam kitchen, and to have support from all of you all. Thank you very much. I'll see you all again.